Welcome back to another episode, the greatest podcast of all time, the greatest crew you've ever seen, the Coffee Break Podcast. Here, it's a happy new year, all right? We're here focused on some new goals, some new incentives, all right? Some new missions for us.
Of course.
And we're on our way to the top, starting off strong. We're back here, back from another day of work. And today, we have another special guest with us. This one, honestly, is very close to me because this guy is literally like a twin of mine, you know? But none other than my own brother, KHALID Ali, in the cut. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate the warm welcome. I very much.
Should I hit him with the AKA or like you want to go by KHALID?
No, I'm good. Yeah, KHALID is cool with me.
All right. So we're here today. We're gonna get it mixed and we're gonna get it twisted. We have a lot of pretty interesting topics. I'm not gonna lie. It was a very the past couple episodes have been very quiet in terms of news in the media. But this week, all I've been seeing. First off, shout out to Shannon Sharpe's podcast, Club Shay Shay, because to me, honestly, that's been the hottest podcast of the year, 2023, and moving forward. That's been the best podcast I've been watching because that guy is.
Did he start like mid-year?
He started, I think, a couple of years back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's been going on for a while now.
Okay.
You know, I've seen a lot of episodes from him. He's been consistently grinding and just doing his thing. Like, I think one thing about Shannon Sharpe is that once he starts something, he's going 100% in, never stopping, never putting his foot on the brake. Like he's diving in with. So 100% shout out to him. And I want that to rub off on us.
And he started another successful show too with freaking
Ocho.
And Gilbert Arenas.
Yeah,
exactly. That's succeeding as well.
So shout out to Unk, you know, OG doing it big. Inshallah, one day we gotta have him on the show, man. Real talk. We need to soak up the game from him.
Yeah, Skip Bayless is really holding him back, eh?
Yeah.
We thought it was always the other way around, but the fact that now that he's without Skip Bayless and he's doing all these amazing things, and now nobody even talks about Undisputed.
You know, Undisputed, even on its own network, is falling down to like 7th or 8th most watched show. Like all the shows on the same.
I don't even see any clips anymore.
Yeah, they're just completely falling off the map.
Yeah.
Shannon Sharpe was their life and soul, and he left, and that was it. They couldn't replace him.
They try to bounce back with Richard Sherman.
Who?
I haven't seen a clip from that.
Unbelievable.
Huh?
No.
Michael Irvin and Lil Wayne on Fridays. Like, what the fuck? What are we talking about here? Like, what's Lil Wayne going to tell me about Trae Young's night tonight? Like, what the
Lil
fuck?
Wayne. I feel like Shannon Sharpe was clearly the star of the show. The
100%,
entire time I was watching, I felt like that at least, you know?
Yeah.
No.
I felt like Shannon was the only reason why I was tuning in, and he just, you know, captured that momentum on his own show.
100%. And to that point, this makes me also think about, before we get into the stuff that happened this week, like Skip Bayless was always accompanied by a really like animated black man.
Yeah.
Either being Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe. He's always had a great co-host. So my question to you guys is, before we get into the topics of the week, was he always the beta? Was he always the second? And he always needed another person to carry his show?
I think, from what I understand, was cold pizza was his thing.
Yeah.
Before First Take.
Cold Pizza was the original show that became First Take.
Okay.
Yeah, and he had a white co-host back then, right?
Yeah.
Before Stephen A. And Stephen A. credits him saying that he stepped up for
the opportunity
for Stephen A. and gave him the opportunity, things like that. So even technically, freaking Stephen A. was a star. I think for even before, a little bit before he left, I think it was Skip Bayless' show still. He was running the show, and then gave Stephen A. the alley-oop to say, "Yo, go ahead."
Yeah, I kind of agree with Mukhtar saying too, because like at first sports media wasn't really that popular, like in the early 2000s, and it was very dominated by daytime, at least sports media was dominated by white guys talking about football, not necessarily spending a lot of time on basketball. And I feel like Michael Wilbon is one of the true pioneers for like black sports media analysts that came up along the scenes. And there was a small little shift in like maybe when LeBron went to Miami, I would say that's when people started to get more engaged. And then Stephen A. Smith, the character, started to come about. And then Skip Bayless, the character, started to come about. And then I feel like that's when ESPN realized they kind of had something going, and they just kind of rode that wave as time went on. But shout out to all the analysts that came ever since, like all the black analysts that came ever since, and all the former players, because it's truly a skill to do what they do. I've seen over the years, and it's not easy. And circling back to Shannon Sharpe, bro, like it's been a crazy week for the Club Shay Shay podcast. They had Katt Williams, none other than like the legend Katt Williams on their show. And he went in unfiltered. He started off just hot, bro. Usually they come on that show and they take a quick sip of Shannon Sharpe's little liquor that he made.
Yeah.
Bro, one deuce of that and it was just fair game. He just started going in. And essentially just to give you guys a gist of the episode itself, was 2 hours and 43 minutes of just pure ranting of every and any comedian, black comedian specifically, male black comedian that came up from the 90s throughout until now, all of their flaws and all of the quote unquote lies that they've spoken about their story throughout the way. And it stems from people like Steve Harvey, Ricky Smiley, Cedric the Entertainer, caught astray, many straight, I would say. Kevin Hart is a really big one.
Yeah, Kevin Hart is the one that I've been seeing like all over my social media.
There's been a lot of clips circling of just different parts of the conversation that they had, but he dove into a lot of real issues that he had with these people, and he started putting a lot of smut on their names, and putting a lot of dirt on their names. In essence, he was basically just trying to cover up the shortcomings or the shortcutters that he said in the comedian game, because he thinks that to be authentic and to be an actual stand-up comedian, to be respected and valued, you have to go through pretty much the underground struggle, and you have to get it pretty much through the grind and not get handouts given to you throughout the way.
Yeah.
And one thing that he alluded to big in that interview is that a lot of these successful comedians like Steve Harvey, Kevin Hart, Cedric the Entertainer, they had to do a lot of immoral acts to get to the positions they were in.
What type of immoral acts? Yeah.
I mean, you can watch the episode if you want, bro. I'm not gonna get into specifics, but
what do you?
But he was basically saying that they had to really, they had to really make some sacrifices in their morality to get to some positions. You know what I mean? Like quote unquote, some Harvey Weinstein stuff went on behind the scenes, and they had to get it that way to get on in comedy, and that's kind of what held Katt Williams and certain other comedians back throughout the years, because they weren't willing to sacrifice their integrity to get some more monetary gain or some more fame and publicity. And he also alluded to, there was one real big clip that's going around of him saying that there's some kind of a humiliation ritual that goes on with black comedians where they have to be put in a dress and be made to look like women as like some kind of a running gag to kind of put less respect and regard on their name in the long run. That's what he was alluding to. And that interested me a lot, and pretty much what he was doing was shedding light on a lot of people who have been respected in the game for a long time, but also trying to paint the truth or his truth as another narrative for what actually happened in their come up. So a lot of people got hit, bro. Like Michael Blackson was involved. Faison Love got astray. Like there were so many names that this guy was going on about. Tiffany Haddish. Like all these people just have so much holes in their story that it's just unfathomable how they got to where they got to without some kind of a external hand helping them out, or quote unquote the white man. So, I watched the whole 2 hours and 43 minutes. I watched a bunch of the clips. 20 million views in 3 days, by the way.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Like the analytics on that video just must be like the chart must be spiking up,
It's already his most popular like video on his entire channel.
By
his most popular podcast.
24 hours.
24 hours. Unbelievable.
So, I mean, for me specifically, if we're going to go into it, like I really looked at that as a very eye-opening interview.
Okay.
And I think that Katt Williams is, to me, at least one of the most bravest celebrities out there to be able to really just drop everything that he has going for him in a sense and risk it all to bring the truth out there. I feel like whistleblowers, for lack of a better term, are so needed in media, so that we know at least kind of some points behind the scenes what's going on, because they want in terms of like entertainment and media itself, the people that are running or holding the strings at the top want everything to look nice at the end of the day. They don't want any controversies upstairs, And for Katt Williams to be involved in some kind of a way and give us some kind of a light to that, I feel like it's important. Whether the delivery or not was good or was, necessary is debatable to me, but I feel like whistleblowers just in general, like he's like the WikiLeaks of black comedy now, you know? So like that's to me is like it sheds some light on what actually goes on behind the scenes, and that was like what really stood out to me. So it's 100% one of the best interviews I ever seen in my life. Super entertaining.
No, the funniest part is he didn't wait 2 minutes. They didn't ask, oh, like what have you been?
Yeah,
Nothing.
right off the bat.
Off top.
Yeah, didn't
right at Ricky Smiley. I didn't even watch that interview yet.
I watched the Ricky Smiley. I didn't even know who Ricky Smiley was. He's like some kind of a radio comedian, right?
He was a comedian. I didn't know much about him. I knew he was in was it Next Friday they were talking about?
I think so. I never knew him back then, so I couldn't recognize him.
Oh no, it was Friday after the next. It was actually I don't remember.
I don't know what movie he was in, but he was in one of them.
He was in one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember him from that, and I've seen clips of his shows and things like that.
Mhm.
I'm not too familiar with him though. But apparently, one of his clips from his show were viral recently. The one in the interrogation room where he got the black lady, the crack, right off top when he said the officer said, "Did you see them selling?" I think he said selling the rocks, and the guy took off his thick ass glasses and said, "I can't even see you." That lady broke right off top. That video's going viral though.
Yeah, I saw that on the timeline a couple weeks back.
But the thing I agree about, his character wasn't that memorable though. So I don't know if that whole conversation was true about him saying that I would have got Katt's role. Mm-hmm. His character wasn't memorable to me.
And especially I wanna pinpoint the one thing that he talked about where the humiliation of the black people.
Mm-hmm.
Where he talked about how there was a time where all black main artists had to wear a dress to be on their come up. And think about it. There's the two Marlon brothers, the Wayne brothers. They did that, white girls.
Yeah.
Terry Crews caught a stray in that because he was attracted to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's his name? Tyler Perry.
Yeah.
He built $1 billion industry off of dressing as a black woman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and in reality,
Martin Lawrence,
like there are so many black influential people that have made their mark by being humiliated in the media. And when you think about it like that, it's like so much of what Katt Williams says is actually in reality, there's some aspect of it that's true, because to get to a certain point, you really have to, I wouldn't say, I don't know if I agree with the selling the soul aspect, but you really have to sell a piece of yourself to be successful in this industry because you're humiliated on a grand scale.
Yeah.
You know? And I just like, to that point, it's like, I respect him for never taking that step in order to keep his credibility. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these people jumped at the chance. Let me ask you a question personally. If I told you crapht tea would go viral tomorrow, would you do what you need to do in order to, you know?
Nah, to be honest with you, I'm not chasing monetary gain, man. I'm not chasing monetary gain at all. I'm chasing my own self-fulfillment.
Okay.
And that doesn't involve certain aspects of what they're going to offer me to get to where I need to. Like, that's not in my recipe at all. So, I mean, there's some people who really just look at like, there's no dollar amount they're trying to target. They're just trying to go for the most amount they can while they're living. And, you know, all power to them to each their own. But when integrity is involved, I feel like that's where I'm just like, you know what, I only get one chance in this life. So I'm not going to just compromise it just for like a fun time.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I always felt like somebody like Katt Williams who, you know, I feel like he's going to sleep at night knowing he's accomplished, no matter if it's in a 50-bedroom mansion or if it's a 6-bedroom mansion. You know what I mean? Like, just going to the next step to him probably doesn't mean as much as it does to other comedians. And I respect that about him. I would want to take the same approach if I was, you know, successful in whatever endeavors that I choose to pursue. But I just feel like it takes a lot of courage to take it a step further and not be okay with not ever, you know, being the greatest comedian ever. And then still on top of that, trying to like, you know, spread light on all the negativity going on in Hollywood. It's like, it's really admirable. But that's all if it's true. I'm not going to just sit here and say
that is true. Yeah,
100% fact.
I'm taking what he said at face value only because it's like, there's a lot of like shocking stuff that's like hard to believe.
Yeah.
But at the same time, yeah, like he could just be salty, you know, like he doesn't have to go off like that. And especially the way he did, you know, like he could bring that truth to light in a different way. So
yeah, I mean, some of the things too. I mean, like, is it really that big of a deal that the Wayne brothers dressed up as a girl? Like, a lot of people found it funny. You know what I
It
mean?
was, but,
Like,
you know, to that degree, like,
is that really
I
a stain on their legacy to this day? Like,
I
they're
thought
still
the-
I think it is.
successful
I think
comedians.
I thought
it
the
is a
movie White
state.
Chicks was pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie.
You know what I mean? Like,
I
it's
thought it was
not. It's
pretty
not like
funny.
I look at them and I think, yeah, these guys want to be women, or I look at them and think
Mhm.
anything of their, sexual orientation. None of that. Like, they're just regular brothers who came up on a bag a couple
No, that's
years
fair,
ago.
but you don't think it's kind of weird the trend because I think the trend kind of died down now.
Yeah.
But there was a trend where so many prominent black men were being dressed as women in the industry. You don't think that was kind of weird at the same time?
But okay, let me ask you this: does anyone have any idea if Jim Carrey was ever in a dress?
No, I think the most
I mean, like
What's his
prominent
name?
white comedians.
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams, yeah,
Yeah.
he was in
Doubtfire.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah.
So is this just a thing in comedy?
But I think the proportion is crazy. I think there's way more blacks being humiliated compared to their white counterpart.
Who are the white comedians?
I feel like white comedians
Who are the white
humiliate
comedians in
themselves in
general?
other
Like, who are the pop and white comedians? Like,
At the time?
like just in throughout the 90s and the 2000s.
Jerry Seinfeld is probably one of the
Bill
biggest
Burr.
comedians.
Jerry
Bill
Seinfeld,
Burr.
was he in a dress?
I don't
No.
know. I can't neither.
Jerry Seinfeld.
He had a show that was about him where he had a bunch of young white girls that were his girlfriend every episode.
See, why couldn't they have an
Yeah,
opportunity like
that's
that?
a
Why
lot-
couldn't they have
that's a little fishy, isn't it?
The
a
white
little
guy
fishy.
got girlfriends, but the black people were dressed as the girlfriends, bro.
Well,
You talking
not,
about?
not in all of them, no. Fresh Prince, you got Will Smith coming home with a new girl every
Nah, he was.
day, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
Not comedian,
he was
though.
in.
He wasn't a comedian back then.
He was.
I
in
guess he wasn't a
crop top, wasn't
comedian.
he? He was. They're dressing him up.
That was
That was
I think
his
That was
style,
just
that
his
was his
style.
style
I
back
think
then.
he rocked that outside of
If
Fresh
that's his
Prince.
style, we gotta start asking him a different question.
was-
What we doing here, Will?
No,
You know?
Will Smith has his own dramas at the moment.
Yeah. He's
Remember
a
the
whole
bodyguard that came out and said he saw something in the room?
What?
Oh, bodyguard.
What bodyguard?
guys don't know.
What the hell? There's
So-
new information.
I don't want to sidetrack too much, but
Okay.
the bodyguard of Will Smith, he said that he walked into the room of Will Smith doing certain things with another man.
Oh, Dwayne Martin.
Yes.
Oh yeah, you're talking about that guy. They're suing
I
that
thought it was
guy.
the
yeah, they're
assistant.
suing that guy.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
I don't believe him, man.
No?
Will Smith turned down a scene in a movie because he didn't want to do anything with a man.
But he
What's
still played a gay character.
I don't even know.
So, that's not that big of a deal.
He
He
played
didn't
a
have
gay
to do
character,
anything.
but he had a stunt double for the
Yeah,
scenes. You know,
what I
like some
mean?
scenes. That's crazy. That's a little crazy.
But another thing that Katt Williams said, which I kind of agree with, is I think to a degree, Kevin Hart's success was I wouldn't say, I know he worked hard.
Mhm.
That's his whole thing.
Yeah.
But to some degree, I think he got assistance to get to that level. Because
Like you're talking like agency assistants, like you're talking like
Like a plant,
corporate
like a
assistant.
plant, like he was, to some degree, it was maybe the way the cards were, or maybe the way the industry was at the moment, they needed a new face of comedy.
Yeah.
And they saw Kevin Hart being a hardworking individual.
But why couldn't he just be the funniest of the group at the time? I don't like. Why couldn't that just be a big break for him?
Which no, to some degree, I believe, like, that's why I take everything at face value, you know. But
Mhm.
I find it so weird how successful he got in the short amount of time that he was doing it. Because something that Katt Williams said is before he was getting these hour-long specials, or he was doing everything, there was no real proof of Kevin Hart going to these comedy clubs with people the door out the line.
Mhm.
Like, the way that he said it was, he became popular in comedy and had sold out shows without the groundwork of that happening, you know? And then after that, that kickstarted his career to go into movies, to go into do this, to go into do that, you know? So I'm not denying the fact. I think Kevin Hart is one of my favorite comedians.
Mhm.
Like, I remember being in high school, going to different videos of like Kevin Hart and just watching it. I think he's
Stand-ups.
hilarious, bro.
Yeah.
I even went to a Kevin Hart special,
Yeah.
you know, when he came to Toronto.
Mhm.
But to that point, I also think it's really interesting how I don't see the groundwork of what he did. He just came into the scene an A-list celebrity.
I disagree though, because like you got to look at the timeline too. Like when do you think his peak was? Like maybe like early 2010s.
Yeah.
Right.
And comedy-wise.
Comedy wise, right?
Yeah.
That's like kind of like the birth of like the social media era, and like the era where your celebrity status can get completely transcended into a different place. Like look what happened to Drake. You know, he pretty much became an overnight success in that era, you know, because he was co-signed to Lil Wayne, and then he was just put everywhere in everyone's faces, and then he just got on, you know? So like
Mhm.
I feel like that time was a integral time for like celebrities to use the social media wave or like the outreach on the internet, or just go against it and go your own way, you know? Because like an example I'll give you is like one YouTuber that we used to watch growing up. His name was Deshaun Raw. You remember Deshaun Raw?
Yeah, Deshaun Raw.
Deshaun Raw was the guy who
Classic.
made Super Hot Fire. You remember
Yeah,
that video back in
The
the
rap
day?
could've just said
battles.
that.
Yeah. And he was on YouTube, and he was booming on YouTube. Like,
Yeah.
I'm talking like he was one of the most subscribed YouTube channels, and he was just completely making it. And he was about to be one of those like early, you know, like the YouTubers that started off early, how they transcended into like vloggers and
Yeah.
became like this next brand for themselves.
Yeah.
The reason why he didn't crack that is because he, at the middle of his height of his career, he dropped everything and said, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do stand-up comedy the original way and go to the comedy clubs and do the underground route and just quit YouTube.
Okay.
And that completely shot his career in the heart. He never made it in stand-up. He couldn't come back to YouTube and revive himself. He tried a couple times that he brought back the Super Hot Fire, but like his videos were not like watched anymore. Like he basically did the opposite of what people like Kevin Hart and Drake and those people were doing at the time, and it shot him in the heart really badly. So his career took a nosedive, as opposed to like these people who embraced social media, who embraced the online world, and then their career took off. Like, of course, I feel like Kevin Hart had backing from like his management and like his agency, whoever was holding him down.
Yeah.
But I feel like a part of his success had to be him embracing the fact that there's a new style of outreach that you can use for comedy. You know?
For sure.
Go ahead.
No.
No, I have 2 points that I wanted to say to your thing.
Mhm.
One, I agree with you and I disagree with you. Kevin Hart, for example, you don't find it funny how his stand-up shows had celebrities there? Like, do you remember how Shaq and LeBron and all these NBA people just randomly appeared?
Yeah.
First and foremost, he had a backing of celebrities randomly. I'm not saying he didn't create these connections before, but you don't find it kind of peculiar how he was so well connected in the community?
Did he not have like stand-up shows that
But
are
that's
like
the thing. Like, he was
public before that?
He was in a famous movie in the Black community called Soul Plane, right?
Soul
Before
Plane,
he
yeah.
was on.
Main character?
Like, yeah, like that movie
He
was
was the main character.
he was the main character of the
Yeah.
movie.
Okay.
Right. And it was like it was a low budget movie that just took off in the Black community specifically.
Yeah.
And that I feel like that and Paper Trails.
Paper Soldiers.
Paper Soldiers. Yeah. There was 2 movies that he was starring in at the time that just blew up in the community.
But that has nothing to do with
But that to
comedy.
that to me, I feel like built his connections amongst other Black comics, amongst other Black
He could have
celebrities.
had people, like
Because there's a
could have
lot. Like,
gained
what
fans,
Black
yeah.
person that never watched Soul Plane?
Paper
You?
Soldiers was.
You never watched it?
You never watched
Are
it?
you Black, bro?
That's crazy.
Are you Black?
Yeah.
You
Just 'cause I didn't watch a movie.
You gotta watch that
I
movie.
didn't
Fam. It's a
watch
cult classic.
There's
No.
some legendary scenes in that movie.
There's some legendary scene in that movie. I won't
100%.
even lie.
No, I just think it's, but by all means, I'm not saying he's a plant, but I'm saying I just find it kind of interesting how things line up.
I feel like
Okay.
he's had an interesting career, though. It's been so interesting how the elements of, celebrity status transcending, becoming bigger, and the timeline in which he was on, like the early 2000s to the early 2010s, like that grind period for him was different from grinding in the 90s because he had so much more access, because he had so much more ways to connect with people, because the comedy the comedy world itself grew since the 90s, you know? Now there's celebrities that are coming to shows. Like in the 90s and shit, I don't think there were.
There were
you know?
celebrities.
I think.
Yeah, but like they were all like exclusive to like Def Comedy Jam or something like that. Like, like where they can group people together as opposed to like going to a hot celebrity, a hot comedian's act at like the comedy clubs or like, Laugh Factory or something like that.
Yeah.
I feel like just the timeline in which he was coming up helped him a lot, and he took advantage of it. So I got to give him his flowers
But
for it. I
by all
can't really
means,
look
yeah.
at it like in the sense where he was a plant.
I think the era he was questioning though was Soul Plane. It was when he came out with a sitcom. Though. That's
Yeah,
I don't
he
think
also
it
had
yeah.
that sitcom.
That sitcom
Yeah.
is funny as hell. I just want to be the first one to say they shouldn't
was
have
there, like, a
canceled
season
it.
now.
Huh?
Yeah, there
I
was
think
one
it's one
season.
season.
Yeah, there's like 8 episodes. I watched all of them, and
Yeah.
they're all. It was phenomenal. I think it was hilarious. It shouldn't have been canceled. But continue though.
No, but the one thing I kind of find strange though was he's still with a big time manager that he met the big time manager early on in his career,
Mhm.
and apparently Dave Becky had a lot to do with a lot of big time comedians and helped them get on and help them, and they're still off one handshake deal. That's something he said that in his doc. That's something I found strange though. How'd you find this manager so early on? But at the same time, I thought maybe another comedian came and said, "Yo, this is my young guy. To just help him out, try to facilitate something, because I think he's going to be the next one. But those two things could be true at the same time. Someone could have introduced him that wanted him, but so also he could have got backing from some interested party that wanted to see him succeed, but had financial interest, like Drake and Jay Prince.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. It's a good point.
One thing you brought up that I disagree with. Drake came up a little bit before the social media time.
Think so?
Because he came up during the time we were in middle school.
Yeah.
And middle school was pre-Facebook.
It was during Facebook.
It was, but it was a time where Facebook wasn't
early Facebook.
Yeah, early Facebook.
Showing our age, eh?
Like,
unbelievable.
Showing our age. Come on, man.
It's also showing Drake's longevity too.
Yeah, that's
still
too.
Successful.
Yeah. But to that point, like, social media was a thing back then, but it wasn't to the degree where it was in the 2010s. So I think to say that Drake, his initial start to fame was associated with social media, I think that's wrong. I think his initial start to fame was his connections with Lil Wayne.
Yeah, but I feel like that was the birth of it, yes. But I feel like what helped him transcend and
in 2010s.
In the early 2010s, yeah.
Because
I discovered Drake on social media. And I discovered Kanye West just in music, you know?
We heard the song, whatchamacallit?
Where do you think niggas heard it from, fam? Niggas sent me the MSN link, like, yo, you heard that? You heard that?
MSN.
I'm like, whoa, who's this? From Toronto?
Yeah, you're right.
I said, what? I sent that nudge right back, you know?
Yeah. Was there any other crazy thing that Katt Williams said?
The joke stealing one was something interesting. I didn't know about.
I actually went and did some research about, let me just pretty much sum up what happened. Well, he said Cedric the Entertainer specifically stole his best joke and then used it on the Kings of Comedy tour as his closer, right? And got standing ovations. And all he did was just change one aspect of the joke to make it more original for himself. But I saw a video of Katt Williams doing the joke, and essentially it's like a method acting joke where he just kind of sits on a chair and he acts like he's in a hoopty ass whip and he's like, you know, riding the music playing in the background. Yeah. That's the joke, right? And Cedric the Entertainer, he flipped it and he made it like a variation where he's in a spaceship.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the same joke pretty much. And I saw them both side by side. It is joke theft. It's like
bar for bar?
Plagiarism by definition, you know? So 100% he has a right to claim that as theft, you know? So pretty much what he said was that in 1998, Katt Williams was he was a up and coming stand-up comedian, right? Yeah. And he was just getting his first looks at anything. He got on this show on BET. I don't remember what show he was saying, but he went on this
Comedy View or something.
Comedy View, yeah. So where they have these up and coming stand-up comics come up and do a couple minutes of an act. And he did so well that his last joke, the closer joke that I was just telling you guys about, became like the commercial for BET's Comic View, right? And I guess as time went on from 1998 and till 2000, Cedric the Entertainer caught wind of it, and then he came to Katt Williams' show one time, and he gave him his appreciation and his love, and he was specifically asking him about that joke. He's like, "Yo, that one was great. Can you tell me a little more about it?" 2 years goes by, and then the original Kings of Comedy comes out, and here's Cedric the Entertainer doing the same joke. So Katt Williams says he talked to Steve Harvey and he talked to Bernie Mac, I think, at the time in the early 2000s when that was happening. And they said, oh, it was just a misunderstanding. And they spoke on Cedric the Entertainer's behalf. And he said, Katt Williams said, I let it go after that. He said, that was fine. For a good 10, 15 years, I didn't think about it. It's only when Cedric the Entertainer came on Shannon Sharpe's podcast.
Wow.
And they explained again, because Shannon Sharpe asked him about the joke stealing accusation. That's when he said, the timelines don't really match. Katt Williams probably just doesn't know my act.
Damn.
And it's like, what? It's on video, bro. It's on, like, and that's where he really turned up. Yeah, that's where Katt Williams is getting cheese. So I thought 100%, like, if the nigga's stealing your jokes, bro, air him out. Air him out. You 100%.
I think it's one of the worst sins, specifically in comedy. I think it's a lot worse to plagiarize in comedy. Yeah. It's like, you know, it's like you're getting an even exchange, like with the fans and stuff. You're making them laugh. For you to like take somebody else's creative work is really, really low. You know, it's not like musically or I feel like it's a lot worse because they're right there looking at you, rating for you off, you know, they're expecting it to be funny and
it's plagiarism.
Yeah, you put in zero of the legwork. But Cedric the Entertainer is also funny though, you know? he has his own original
he
jokes as
does.
well.
No, I think it's the only industry where it's really difficult to copy without it being like 100% plagiarism. Like you've seen so many movies where it's basically like copies of each other, but people still enjoy those movies because they still like the message behind it, right? Music. How many people have taken inspiration from different music artists in the past and kind of sample it to the future, right?
But I feel like it's more like along the lines of if you came out with a song and then I took those exact same lyrics and then used it for my song on a different beat. No, I'm talking about the lyrics, not the beat. Okay. That's more of a plagiarism.
Yeah, but even that, I feel like a lot of people will look at like you're paying respect to something that came before.
I guess so, yeah.
In comedy, though, it's just a sin, you know? There's no other way to look at
Drake.
it. Yeah, that's true.
He spent so much time yelling about Drake.
A lot of people, they get on Drake about that. But Drake has other, real ghostwriting accusations that are also, relevant.
Yeah, he does.
But yeah, it's just really bad to... I think, though, Katt Williams, what he was saying about Cedric the Entertainer makes it seem to me that he really got like the short end of the stick in the early like 2000s, late 90s. He seems like he should be a lot bigger than he is today.
He kind of changed my mind frame about him as a comedian because I only would see him in headlines as like, oh, he did crack.
He got
beat up by a 17-year-old kid.
I was about to bring that up because when I think about Katt Williams, I thought about a troubled individual.
Me too.
Like I didn't think about his comedy. I didn't think about things. I was associating him with his drugs and like being on the wrong walk of life.
If somebody told me that man does drugs, I would be like, yeah.
It's bad because the media wanted you to believe that.
It's just the way he acts too,
But on the interview, he was, in my opinion, I don't know the actuality of what he was saying was correct. But even if you take that aspect away from it, he sounded like a sound individual.
No, he sounded genuine.
Yeah,
very passionate about it.
Sounded like a real person compared to like what I've seen clips on YouTube of him looking and sounding like a maniac.
Yeah.
It's the way they wanted you to think he looks.
Interesting.
I've always known him as somebody who likes to talk on topics like this too. Like, plenty of times I've seen him talking about what Hollywood makes people do, but it just it wasn't really as popular as it is now because like now he got 2.5 hours to really lay it all in, get everything off his chest.
Yeah, that's true.
No, but note the guys that he showed respect for without talking shit about. Bernie Mac.
Yeah.
Gary Owen.
You talked shit about Gary Owen.
He didn't.
Nah, he said he can't crack through the door because he's not willing to risk his integrity.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, like he's kind of giving him love.
That's a compliment.
And and what's his name? And Patrice. He mentioned certain guys that I think those guys are just like him now. Because the other guys like Steve Harvey, Cedric, and Kevin Hart, they're more polished. They're more clean. These guys are willing to talk about anything. Theo Hughley went on as many shows as he could. Like last couple of years, talk about politics, talk shit about a lot of people. I think there's a divide though of the clean guys, the ones that don't want anybody talking about anything behind the closed doors, and these guys are willing to though.
Yeah.
And that whole era about Bernie Mac though, Bernie Mac was the star out of the Kings of Comedy, but it's well known, and Steve Harvey I think owned up to it that he was jealous of him, that he wanted to be that guy, but I think the people chose Bernie Mac.
Yeah, he was literally the funniest one of all of them to me.
For
sure. Bernie Mac, man.
R.I.P. man.
He was taken too soon.
Real shout out to Shannon Sharpe.
This opens the door for him to get so many other guests. And he's so well deserving after the disrespect that he took from Skip Bayless.
For real. It couldn't happen to a better individual. He takes his craft so seriously. So dedicated to it,
Facts.
Inspiration to us all, not gonna lie. Shout out to Katt Williams too.
Let me ask y'all a question.
Okay.
You guys know about the snow bunny epidemic?
Hold on. Just that sentence itself is just so wild.
What a way to phrase.
Okay.
I wanted to start with the mega.
Epidemic. Wow. Not even a scare anymore. It's not a scare. It's not a warning. We're in epidemic now. Wow.
Do you guys have any context as to who Dr.Umar is?
Oh, man.
Yes. Dr.Umar,
the blackest human being ever.
Yep.
So to give you guys a little bit about what happened this week, or I think it was the week prior, he was on the Joe Budden Podcast.
Yeah.
And wherever he goes, he brings his controversial views, right? And for the most part, he's been very to the lane about what he believes in. And this episode, what went viral about this episode, even though they took it down, was he and one of the co-hosts on the Joe Budden Podcast had I would say a little argument about their position on interracial relationships. Because Dr. Umar is so about staying in like your culture, your ethnicity, staying in where you need to be, right? And the co-host was saying, why does that matter when we're growing as a society? You know? So then they were going back and forth as to, is it right? Is it wrong? And then at the end of the day, the podcast, the co-host that was with the white girlfriend ended up walking off the show because he felt disrespected, you know? And then to that point, I was thinking about it, and I wanted to ask you guys a question on I want to get into the idea of what your stance on interracial relationships is. And to that point, is it controversial that Dr. Umar keeps going up to these people and having these controversial views, you know? So my question number one, what is your stance on interracial relationships?
Well, if I'm going to really genuinely be honest, bro, as time went on in my life, bro, I started to realize that I'm just in it for the individual. I'm not in it for who they identify as. I'm not in it for what social groups they're part of and what part of cultural groups they're in. Like they're genuinely the right person for me. I won't really consider their race. So I'm all for interracial marriages and interracial relationships as long as the two people genuinely are with each other.
Okay.
I obviously understand that there comes some issues with that in terms of like different families and different views, different religious views, cultural views and stuff, especially when you integrate families. But individuals, if they're like-minded people, their race and their culture should not have anything to do with them like uniting in life. So I'm all for it. I see interracial couples and I'm genuinely happy for them.
Okay.
Don't see a problem with it.
But
How about you?
The only issue I have with the interracial is what he mentioned, interculture.
Okay.
I think that a lot of people come from different areas of life. I'm not mentioning everybody's, it's their own business.
Yeah.
For me personally, I don't think I will, because of the different cultures and different environments we may have come up in, that I prefer to be with someone that comes from my environment, that comes from my culture. So let's say if we get serious, end up down the road,
Yeah,
there's no fights about what type of faith we want to follow, what type of lessons that we want to impose. If we come from a similar environment, we already have a similar foundation. That's why, for me personally, I wouldn't go down that road.
Yeah.
But yeah, to each their own. I'm not a fan of it for myself.
Okay. How about you, Khalid?
I mean, I kind of take a similar stance to Muhammad here, but in general, I just feel like if you're, gonna get with a person, like the last thing that should be, the first thing that should be on your mind, honestly, is who the person is. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
Facts.
And like after that, I feel like it should be like every person should be able to decide, if they want to, go through all the cultural differences that they go, that they're going to have to go through. And if you're not willing to put up with that, just like Mukhtar said, then it might not be for you. But if you find somebody that you're willing to put up with that for, then I don't see why you should hold yourself away from who you feel like could be your soulmate just because, God dealt you guys different cards.
One more thing I want to add too is I think one of the most heartbreaking things in life is when two people who genuinely are made for each other cannot be with each other because of cultural differences, religious differences. That is so heartbreaking sometimes to me in life, because like you really like you start to question yourself and like your upbringing. You start to question a lot of things when stuff like that happens to you, and it really puts you in a weird place in life. So like to me specifically, that is like one of the hardest parts of life that you can go through as a person. So he's right. You got to have some courage to get into a relationship like that.
No, you're. I totally agree with you guys. Like for me personally, I'll answer the question. Interracial relationships, at the end of the day, it's about who you connect with on like a higher level. It's about who you're able to, because that, to be honest, that's the hardest thing to get over. It's hard to look at color when you're trying to find a connection with you, because that's the most important aspect of a relationship, being able to maintain, bond, and create something amazing. But something that Dr. Umar said, which kind of, I wouldn't say changed my mind, but gave me a new perspective, was the stats in the United States, okay? So apparently, according to what Dr. Umar said, 1 in every 4 Black women in the United States get married. And even though that one that gets married, there's just a 60% chance that she gets divorced. So another thing that he brought up was like when it comes to white women and black men relationships, right? Particularly, like the white woman, a rich white woman would never go for a poor black man, but a rich black man doesn't mind going that route. So the reason why he brought that up is that the high caliber black men, typically when they get to a certain level, they don't choose to stay in their ethnicity. They choose to kind of venture out and find like another race.
Why?
Which in this case, he chose as the snow bunny pandemic, right? Or
Oh.
epidemic, whatever he called it as.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, according to those stats, to hear that 75% of black women do not get the opportunity to get married because their counterpart chooses to go elsewhere, I find that interesting. And one more thing before I give you guys the floor. Like, I know there are so many stereotypes surrounding black women. Like, even in the black men community, like, how many times have we seen online where black women are being shit on?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, oh, they're ratchet, oh, they're ghetto, oh, they're this, oh, they're that. But then on the flip side, their counterpart, the lighter skin, the white women, are kind of glorified. They're kind of given this
Beauty
spotlight.
standard.
Like they're the most beautiful thing ever. And when I get to a certain like place in life, I'm gonna gravitate towards those people.
Yeah.
You know, don't get me wrong. There's aspects of that I don't agree with, but it really opened a new perspective as to why do certain individuals, like, look at it from NBA players, other than like the old heads like Dwayne Wade or LeBron James or like Carmelo Anthony. Like most of these basketball players, when you look at their girlfriends, they all have something in common. And why do you think that is?
Well, to be honest with you, I do find it odd. I do agree with that. That is odd. Like people, especially black men in like positions of power,
Yeah.
they don't really look at their own kind as the same when they get to that status. I don't know why that is. That's very odd to me that that's the case. However, I do want to stress on one thing you said. Like,
Go ahead.
Specifically NBA players, right? I look at those players and like obviously you have the outliers like LeBron James, Steph Curry, Dwayne Wade, blah blah, right? But it's become that narrative has become so much so the case that you look at a guy like Dirk Nowitzki, who's a white guy married to a black woman, and he's just like an anomaly of never before. You know, like wow, this is unbelievable. He gets a seat at the table with us. You know. And it's like, wow, like that should just be normal. You know, you would think that people are just getting with other people, you know, individual mindset. But no, it's more so like, and I also agree too, like a lot of it has to do with like the access they have, the different types of communities they're into when they're, you know, integrated into like societies of wealth and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
But you would think that there would be some more affection or care or like interest in your own kind, no matter where you are. I find that very odd, you know, like I have nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with getting with somebody who's a different race. I'm not saying that that's something that they're doing that's wrong, but I just find it odd that they're only basically swimming in this one pond when they get up there and they're not even considering the rest of the sea.
I don't think it's about considering, like, look at the schools they go to. Duke, North Carolina.
Yeah, I think, being in those communities and stuff really makes it difficult, but still, like, you have so much access, you know?
No, but again, what is the number? Was it? I don't know if it's still 13. They said 13% of America is African American.
Okay.
Really?
I think that's what the stat was years ago. I don't know if it's still right now.
Mm-hmm.
But the celebrity of basketball players, they're in environments, like you said, of wealth, of different higher communities. And what's more likely that they're going to run into? Though?
Mm-hmm.
I see, like, even the older generation. Look at Kareem. Look at Bill Russell before he died. They're with the white women because of the environments they're in. Let's keep it a buck.
Well, Kareem was with a black woman first.
Yeah,
he was with a black right now. I'm talking.
I want to challenge you at one point. I think particularly NBA players can't use that excuse because they're in a new city every night. Like they're in Atlanta, they're in Toronto, they're in New York. Like they're playing in a new city. They get to like, of course, they're gonna go out for dinner. They're gonna go chill with their boys. They are exposed to at least by minimum 30 different cities a year on multiple occasions. So I don't think it's proper to use the excuse that when they were in their 20s that they were surrounded by like Duke or like all these white women. I think they have ample opportunity to go to Atlanta for per se.
But that's another thing too. Like, to take the conversation a little bit sideways, the way Black women are represented, just in general, is so negative to the point where it's like they don't even like see them in the same light or in the same comparison as like a fair skinned woman. Because you see like. You can see like I'll give you an example, like a Emma Stone, for example. She's just a normal white actress, and she's just always looked at it just in praise, respect, high regard, And then you see like a counterpart of somebody who's coming up, like what's the girl's the name that's dating Zendaya, someone like that, and like she just always, any chance that the media gets to poke holes at her career and make something issue, they go at it, and it's like the way that they're represented is not very fair, and to be honest with you, I feel like some people fall into that as like a trap, and they start to see Black women as like you said, ratchet, ghetto, and like not good enough standard for them when they're getting like a certain position of power in their lives. But that's wrong,
100%.
I feel like Black women just generally, they have some of the best to offer, they're very like-minded, they're very close to you as just a normal Black person, a normal Black man. And then there's so much like educated, smart, hardworking, grinding Black women out here that they don't have those aspects of like ghetto-ness and any ratchetness or anything like that. Like that's just a huge stigma that they need to wipe, and it's pretty disheartening. I'm not gonna lie, because it's our people.
Yeah, but recently I think Gilbert Arenas, like as we mentioned earlier, he has that show Shannon Sharpe now, and they were talking about like pro athletes meeting women. And he said, look at the hours we work and look at the hours the professional people work. The professional people from 9 to 5s, when we're out in society, going to grocery stores, doing different things, they're at work. And by the time we're getting prepared to do our job, which is generally at night in the evening time. So he said the women we're meeting, so he mentioned the women we're meeting are strippers. Because during the day, the strippers are at the grocery stores. But generally, we work the same hours. So after the games, where do we go? We go to different venues to go party and things like that. So we may not be able to get the opportunity to meet the professional women. But to go back to my earlier point, the environments, let's say they're at some certain events, some certain Jordan events, Jordan brand events. Yes, there are some Black women in there. But you're mentioning these different dinner parties or things like that. They're with their teammates. They're not going to try to go walk across go look at some girl. No, there is a team environment. They go to these Jordan Brand events. That's when they intermingle with people. That's when they try to find some women. It's either their strip clubs or things like that, where it's more frequent that you're going to meet a white woman there.
True, but if I am a celebrity, I'm shooting my shot on IG with everybody.
I feel like when you're at that stage, like women are kind of almost disposable to you. It's like you don't even have to shoot your shot. You're just like, I like.
I'm pretty sure you have everybody. I get your point. Like your surroundings is what you're probably gonna end up with. I understand that, but I don't think that's a good enough reason for you not to find a Black woman. You know what I mean? Like
I just think that it's more like I think the conversation should be that Black, like the darker you are as a woman in America, the tougher it is for you to separate yourself in like the pool of popularity / wealth. And I think that plays with the NBA players, because in where they go, the functions that they're at, they're seeing more fair-skinned women there because they have an easier time in America in general, navigating through getting, becoming successful, popular. They're popping, they have money in their accounts, So that's like what's attracting the NBA players. And I think that it's more so like a flaw in just how America just is hoeing Black women in general. Like the darker you are, it's more difficult to separate yourself. Even successful actresses, like you just mentioned Zendaya. I know Zendaya probably gets a lot of hate and stuff compared to a white actress, but she also is in like really, really popular movies. Something that like, I don't know, like Keke Palmer, for example. She's probably not getting the same roles Zendaya is, regardless of acting ability, just because of how fair-skinned Zendaya is,
Taraji P. Henson's in the news right now talking about she hasn't...
Yeah, that's like an epidemic going on.
For a minute now. But like to his point, you have to be going out of your way and you have to have that mentality.
Yeah,
This is what I want for my family. This is what I want for myself.
I feel like they're super young too. It's like 23, 24-year-olds. They're seeing a bunch of
I
girls.
get it. I get it.
You know what I mean?
not wrong. I get it. I get the point. But it's just like when all you're dipping your toes in is a certain type of water. Like, is at that point, is it the water or is it the person dipping their toes in the water?
But are you thinking about where you're dipping your toes? Or are you thinking, I'm a pro athlete. This is my job. Let me just find a shorty that I can be with right now. But this is where I am. I don't think guys, like, especially men in certain positions, like you said, a lot of women are disposable to them. That they're not really. I don't think they're thinking directly. Let me go look for someone that looks like my mom. I don't think they have the time to think about, let me go, this is what the value is early on, especially. And these guys are getting women pregnant early on because they have that access.
Yeah, but I think you're overcomplicating it. I don't think it's as hard as it may seem to find somebody with the same complexion as you. I don't think it's that difficult. I just think it's interesting how so many basketball players, by all means, I may sound like a hater, but do what you want. Like, I'm not going to say.
It's weird, yeah, because like I don't know if you guys ever saw, there was this video that was circulating the timeline years ago when the Cavaliers won the championship, where Kyrie Irving was on a yacht and he was just white women, and they were like, "Yo, Kyrie hates black women. Kyrie hates black women."
It took him years to live that down.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
It took him years.
He really had to really come out and just really do some real, groundwork for the black community to live that down.
Yeah,
is that where the native stuff came from?
I don't know. Who knows? That could have sparked it all. That could have sparked. Before that, I did not know Kyrie Irving had a personality.
For example,
I thought he was a hoop.
Seemed like
Klay
somebody
Thompson.
who's super, Black Lives Matter at all time would do that.
Yeah,
you know what I
that's true.
mean? Like,
that's true. So it is odd. I do find it odd.
That's hilarious. They made him go find himself.
Yeah,
They made him to Africa, and you had to go and really do some research.
I'm 85% native and
He's sitting there like, why was there white women?
That's crazy though. There wasn't one black woman.
Yeah, it was interesting. It is an interesting thing. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it makes me question, like, maybe, like, if the cards were dealt different for yourself, would you have any idea or would you have any sense of the fact that black women and fair skin, light skin, white women don't have the same fair shake when you get to a high status?
I believe so, 100%.
Do you think these guys are conscious of that when they're in these communities and whatnot?
I don't think I think when they're younger, for example, I think coming right out of high school, 18 years old, 19 years old, and you have the world at your feet, I don't think you're really putting two and two together where I'm going to look for my partner. I think they're just trying to get with all the women in their DMs that want to, like,
and a lot of them drop their girlfriends too. That's a huge thing that happens. Like, they have girlfriends in high school, and then as soon as they get into college, a big name, they drop their girlfriend.
Yeah.
And then,
now they have a pool of women.
Yeah, they have a circle of women that they could choose from now.
But it's to that point, like, they have the world at their disposal.
Yeah.
So I get where they might lean towards a certain side because that's what they're presented. But to my original point, if you look for what you want to look for, it's not impossible, especially with the connections that basketball players have. They can get with any superstar women, That's why I rate Dwayne Wade for what he did. I think Gabriella Union is beautiful.
He was with her, cheated on his girl. Apparently, the story is that he cheated on his first girl with her.
I'm not saying he's a great person. I just said he landed the bag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong. Dr.Umar does say some crazy stuff where I don't agree with.
I did want to touch on the fact that Dr.Umar was, like, I feel like he was I'm not sure what that brother's name is. I'm sorry. I don't recall what his name was.
His name is Ish.
Yeah.
Ish, yeah. That guy, I felt like he had every right to walk out, like, if you're just sitting there basically insulting the decision of who you're sharing your life with, like, I feel like that's taking it a step too far, especially when the guy's telling you over and over again, I'm very active in the black community. I do my part. Just because I, happen to share my life with somebody who's not black doesn't mean that I don't care about black people in general, So I did want to give him a little bit of flack because I just think it's inappropriate to, challenge somebody's life decisions like that without truly knowing. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's a great point. Holy, yo! By the way, you're incredible. Had no side story. There's so many. I didn't bother you for a while because I thought of all the clips that I could have. You gave me 3 solid clips, by the way.
I'm glad I could be a part.
No, but to navigate back, Dr. Umar does say some crazy stuff. And for the most part, I don't agree with a lot of stuff he says about homosexuality, about a lot of the stuff that he says about like interracial couples. Like, to your point originally, I want to get back to your point. Whoever you end up connecting with is who you should be with.
Yeah.
You shouldn't look at the color aspect of it. But I just want to look at the psychology behind why so many of our black brothers navigate away from black women. That's my only thing. At the end of the day, do what you need to do. Be with whoever you want to be with. Love whoever you want to love. You know?
Thanks.
But sometimes you got to look at the nuances. You know?
Yeah, you
got to look at the why did you decide to be with this person? What made you gravitate towards that person?
Yeah.
What made you love that person? You know? At the end of the day, love is love. But how did the equal side get to love? That's my question. You know?
The only thing I could say to rebut that, fam, is like, does it matter? Does it really matter at the end of the day?
I think it does to a certain degree because,
Why?
like, I think being especially a dark-skinned black woman, life, it already gives you the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
And if your counterpart black men are running away from you.
But that's like, look, I mean, like, it's just the cards you're dealt with, man. Like, you got to just take life for what it is, truly and honestly. You know, like, there's some people that don't have access to like certain things, you know, certain random necessities, for example. I don't think they're looking at people that have those necessities like, why do you do this with this? They're thinking, why don't I have this?
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like it's just, life is just full of nuance, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you could be a dark-skinned woman and have a successful, rich, white male husband. It just depending on the cards that you're dealt with, you know? I feel like it's all individual based. I know statistically it doesn't work in our favor, but there's a problem with the system in general, is what I think, you know? Like, the society is built for the people like us to be oppressed and to be down and to be at the bottom. So it's not in our favors just in general, but when you kind of play life the way that your cards are dealt with you, you start to feel more appreciative, you start to feel more gratitude, you know? So I feel like there's a lot of nuance that comes with it. So if just in general, like, black women, they obviously should be, you know, helped, should be championed on. They should, we should all be wearing Trust Black Women hats, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we should all put them on, we should put them on blast for 100% on the map. But at the same time, you know, a smart black woman knows that life is going to be difficult and she has to move accordingly, you know? And that's just, you know, it's sad to say, but that's just how life is. So I'm going to leave it at that. That's another insightful conversation. Thank you guys all for joining me.
Yeah.
My brother, you came, you did it.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys for having me.
I appreciate you being on the couch, man. It's an honor and a pleasure as always. I'm your host with the most. My name is Slim. These are my bros.
Jama.
Elo. I'm trying out some names.
And our guest for today,
KHALID.
We'll see you next time.